We are back with another episode of Good Mom. Hey, everybody, I'm Sunny. Lindsay is joining me today, of course, and we're here to talk about our amazing family and being a good mom, trying to be a good mom, trying to figure this whole parenting thing out. And today we're talking about helicopter parenting,
Oh
which
yeah.
is a buzzword because there seems to be there's some people that are like really very much for it, like create a bubble around my kids so nothing can harm my kid and I'm just going to hover over them like a helicopter, for those of you who don't know what the term is, and I'm not going to let them out of my sight because something bad could happen to them, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
then we have this other side that's like, okay, well, my kids need to make their own mistakes. I'm gonna be a little bit more hands off. And then I guess you have even the extreme, which is like, where are my kids? Do you remember that ad? This is really gonna date me, but goes way far back where it's like, it's 10 o'clock at night. Do you know where your
Your kids
children
are.
are?
Yes, I do
There's
remember
those
that.
parents too.
Oh my gosh, totally.
Like, where
And
the hell are my kids, parents?
exactly. And I remember being a kid, to go to the anti-helicopter parent. I was a latchkey kid, and it was my
Yeah.
brother and I were walking home from school at age 8, and we'd come home, open the door. We're like waiting for mom to come home from work. She was there usually within a half an hour, but still, it was like, wow, that's kind of the opposite of what a helicopter parent would do today. They just
Yes.
don't let their kids out of their sight. So,
I mean, I remember growing up and having a lot of freedom
mhm,
to
me
play
too.
with kids on the street. And I
Yeah.
would be out for hours,
Yep.
but I would come in. Growing up back in the Midwest, we had huge yards. People had
Totally.
swing sets and stuff in their yard. And
Totally.
I had a big sandbox, so people would like to come over and play in the sandbox. And so it wasn't as big of a deal. Like, I did not come from a helicopter parent family at all. So
Me
this
either.
term, I was like, as a parent, I was like, wow, that is completely different than what I'm used to. But Lindsay, I know you had a friend that had some experience with this.
I totally do. My daughter, when she was growing up, had a couple of really good friends, and I was less of a helicopter parent. I was not the kind of person who had to know where my kids were every minute of every day. Yes, I checked in with them. Yes, I wanted to know that they were safe, but I was not like a hovercraft and
Yeah.
helicoptering every minute. My daughter had a friend who had a helicopter mom. And it was difficult, honestly, for me as a parent also, because if I didn't abide by the helicopter approach, she wasn't going to let the young girl come over and play with my daughter.
Oh, wow.
Wow. I mean, it was
Yeah.
really difficult. And that helicoptering destroyed the confidence of my daughter's friend.
Mm.
Absolutely destroyed. She couldn't make a decision about anything. Even when she was hungry, it's like, well, what do you want to eat? If you'd ask her that question, I don't know. I should call my mom.
No way.
Right.
Really?
It's that strong. Okay. So I'm sure that most of our listeners are not that person. But if you are and you're listening to this, I would just like to say, first of all, it's really stressful for you as
Yeah.
the parent to be that worried and that hovering and that concerned about every single minute of your child's life is not a good thing for you.
Hmm.
It will destroy your inner sense of well being, and you'll become so fused with your child that
Yep.
nothing else in your life becomes important except that. And that
Yeah.
is not cool. So I just want to put that out there. That's one of the hardest things that I've had to deal with is explaining to my friend how she was hurting herself. It also takes a huge toll on the family. Parents don't get along when one of them wants to be the helicopter and the other one's like, I don't care.
Hmm.
I'm fine with son or daughter doing X, Y, or Z. It's, whew. So their relationship didn't last. There's a gap in the parenting style that we
Yeah.
all know can cause destruction of relationship. So there you go. And then,
Hmm.
most importantly, for the kid, I think that one of the most important things for children to learn today is how to be independent.
Yes.
And the only way they get to do that is if they make choices and they crash and burn. And it's a whole lot better to fail fast when you're young than to do it when you're 40 trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think what I would say about helicopter parenting is it's hard on the helicopter as much as it is hard on the kid. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
it's probably not the best solution. for what we could do as a good parent today. So,
Yeah.
you know,
The I do have some experience with this. So in our community where I live, there's a bunch of houses, over 100 homes in this development, okay? And my kids play outside a lot. At least my girls do. The boys are a little bit more secluded. But the
yeah.
girls like to go out and they have friends in the neighborhood and whatever. And I am definitely more of a let's make sure they're safe,
Yeah.
but I don't need to know it. If you're going to go in someone's house, so I can't go outside and see where you're at, that's a problem. You have to tell me before you do that.
Hmm.
You can't just get in someone's car and, go to 7-Eleven or whatever, because like do slushies and stuff like that. I'm like, I need to know where you're at. I have to approve
Sure.
that,
Right.
but I don't need to know every little thing you're doing. Most of the time I can hear them, by the way.
Right.
So I'm like,
Exactly.
okay, I know where they're at. But what's interesting is when you're in these communities where there's like here in California, the homes are very close, right? We don't have big yards.
Right.
So it feels like everybody it kind of feels like everyone knows everybody's business, right? Which
Hmm.
isn't necessarily a good thing. And I have noticed that there are other parents in the community that are more in the what I would call or consider a helicopter parent.
Yep.
And I can see that they're not so happy with my choices with my kids because I'm not doing the hovering,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
I feel like sometimes there's, judgment and little comments here and
Well,
there.
let's be
And
real. There are. It is. That's happening for sure.
yeah, because then I
Yeah.
get the don't you care about your kids? You don't,
Right.
they were in this park by themselves. I'm like, they're
Right.
11 years old. They can go to a park in a gated community
Community.
by themselves or walk our dog by themselves. Like,
Yep.
what
Yeah.
am I supposed to sit out there with my laptop with them like the whole time? Like, what is that teaching them?
Right. Exactly. So there's a couple of things there too. Yes, that is happening. And so developing your own sense of resilience around your knowing that it's okay for the kids to run around and be free in their zone. I'll
Yeah.
call it your bubble. That's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe not, jumping into strangers' cars is, that's always a good lesson not to do.
No.
But there's a spiritual practice that you're bringing in. And I want to share this because I think it's relevant to all of it. Worry is a prayer for what you don't want.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that again for the listener's sake. Worry is a prayer for what you don't want. So if you're spending your time thinking about all the bad things that could happen to your kids if you're not standing right over them,
Yep.
guess what? Your kids are going to probably get more of those problems than anyone else's kids because you're creating it
Yes.
with your thoughts and
With
your
your
feelings
energy.
and your energy. Everything is pointing at your kid's going to have an issue. So,
Yep.
if what you want is to learn how to not do that, part of it could just be to practice special manifestation skills. Meditate on what you do want. Look at it from the standpoint of, wouldn't it be cool if all this happened? My kids went to the park. They had a great day. The dog got to run. I got to take a bath. Whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Visualize it the way you want it to be, as opposed to spending the time visualizing what you don't want it to be. That's
Yes.
what allows kids to grow up.
Yes, and I've got a great example for that.
Yay.
So,
Oh, goody.
this school year was the first year my oldest son, so he's now in high school, and the high school's pretty close to us. And he told my husband and I, he's like, I would really like to get an e-bike and ride it to school. Well, this was at the same time we were kind of changing things up with schools, and my girls are now homeschooled, and I was looking for ways to not be like the school bus driver to take everyone to school in the morning. 3 different schools. I was like, yeah, we're not doing that in the morning. And so I welcomed this approach, but there was that, the mama bear in me was like, how many intersections is he going to have to cross? How many cars can he go in? I'm thinking all this kinds of, because I'm not worried about my oldest son. He's a really good kid. I've even had parents say to me, he was really mindful in traffic. Like he stops, he looks, he listens, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about all the other crazy drivers out there not looking for
Sure.
an e-bike, right, on its
Totally.
way to the high school. And for me, every morning I make sure, and he's missed it sometimes, I'm like, but he comes in and he lets me give him a hug and a kiss before he goes to school.
Nice.
And that's exactly what I do, Lindsay. When I put my arms around him, I feel like I'm just putting energy into him.
Perfect.
That is protecting him.
Yep.
And sometimes I even say, please be careful. But it's more about me feeling and knowing that he is going to be safe. And I feel like that I'm like imparting that on him.
Totally.
Before he goes out the door. And then I can relax. And then it actually makes me feel so much better because I feel like I did something. I don't have control over him stopping at a red light and stuff like that on his way to school. But I felt like I did something there energetically.
You did.
You know, to help him.
You did.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
100% you did. And I think it's really critical that parents learn this as a skill, which is the visualization of your kid being safe. Because what we do know is that you have zero control.
Yep.
None. So let's just remember this. I have no control, and that's okay.
Control.
So, and once you can surrender to that and know that either God's got his back or he's doing the right thing or whatever it is that within you feels the right way to do this, that is when you know he's going to be fine. Yeah. No matter what, it's his journey. And you doing that is perfect. It's like sending energy and love and white light, we call it.
Yes.
Put white light around him and just, you're protected by all the angels that are around you. Yay.
And it's amazing how much I've seen him grow this year with just giving him a little bit of leeway, right?
Yeah. I love that.
And that has made him a more independent kid. And I've seen it help him in other areas of his life just by letting him ride an e-bike to school. Now, again, that was initially, I was like, oh, I don't have, you know, but sometimes, you know, I don't know if a helicopter parent would allow that to happen, really. You know, sometimes you just have to back off.
Not at all. I mean, I remember, so I had a very lucky childhood on this particular channel, but when I think about my own kids, I parented them or supported them to become the best version of themselves that I could imagine. Yeah. And so what that meant was listening a lot and then at the age appropriate or readiness appropriate opportunities, giving them the chance to do it. And more often than not, they were terrified to do what was being suggested. Right. So like even my son, he was in the 8th grade and he said, I don't know how to play lacrosse, but I want to play lacrosse. And I said, sweet, let's go get you a stick and a helmet and you can start playing. And he looked at me like, I'm going to die, you know. And I said, no, actually, you're not going to die. It's going to be a lot of fun. You get to hit people with sticks. And it's totally legitimate. And he said, oh my God, I didn't even think of it that way. So then he became like the team captain by the end of the 9th grade because he was so ready to go do something that was dangerous, hard, scary, whatever it is. Yeah. So helicoptering has to come to a stop at some point, you know, and young men especially, to grow into good men, they need to have the spaciousness by the time they're like 15, 16 to when they're 25. Yeah. Otherwise, they end up being, you know, what people traditionally call a mama's boy, or
then they never leave the house. You'll never get them out
of your basement forever.
Forever.
So you don't want that. Nobody does. And we want good men out there for the good women that are also coming through the pipe. That's and a really I think that that's important. And they have to, I hate to say it, but parents, let's listen up. They're going to get hurt. Yep. You cannot protect them from everything you hope that they never get hurt from. So it's a good time to surrender into it when they're in their teens. And then, you know, let's see what they do. And like you said, your son's growing. Yep. And it's so exciting to see. So
it is.
Yay. Yay. So
sometimes you have to let go and let God, literally.
Yep. That's what I say. I'm in.
And that's
amen to that.
Well, we would love to know what you guys have to say about this. And if you have any crazy stories of people, or maybe you went through it with your first kid and your second kid, you're like, heck no, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing that.
We want to hear all about it. So head on over to our website at goodmom.org. You can reach out to us there, watch all of our episodes, connect with us online, and we will see you on the next episode.
We'll see you then.
Bye.